when the iron ram shattered my front door at precisely 3:11 in the morning. The violent concussive wave ripped me straight out of a deep sleep. My eyes instantly locked onto the crimson glow of the digital clock beside my bed before the blinding flashlights sliced through the darkness, pinning me to the mattress. Shouts of federal search warrant echoed through the hallway, while heavy hands dragged me onto the cold hardwood, forcing my arms behind my back as the steel restraints bit into my skin. My 20 years of military intelligence training overrode the instinct to panic, allowing me to remain perfectly cooperative despite the chaos consuming my home. As my cheek pressed into the floorboards, the distinct scent of lavender wax reminded me of the peaceful weekend routines that were currently being dismantled around me. My heart completely shattered when a terrifying scream echoed from the back bedroom, a sound of absolute fright from my 7-year-old daughter, Clara. I yelled out to the officers that a young child and my 17-year-old stepson, Vance, were in those rooms and posed absolutely no threat to anyone. A tense moment passed before a deputy confirmed both kids were contained and unharmed, allowing a small wave of relief to wash over me as they hauled me to my feet. They marched me past Clara's bedroom door, where I saw her clutching her favorite blanket, with tears pooling in her wide eyes while an officer tried to comfort her. I managed to call out that everything was just a massive misunderstanding and that I loved her before they pushed me further down the corridor toward the kitchen. Vance stood there in his pajamas, his face twisted in absolute anger and confusion as he demanded to know why they were taking me away. I urgently instructed him to remain calm, watch over his little sister, and immediately call our family attorney, whose number was written on the refrigerator door. Stepping out onto the front porch, the freezing October air slapped my bare skin while the flashing blue and red emergency lights illuminated our entire neighborhood. Half the street had gathered on their lawns in their robes, including my old neighbor Arthur, who simply offered a somber nod of silent support from his porch. My gaze shifted to the edge of the driveway, where my wife, Evelyn, stood perfectly still beneath the street lamp holding her smartphone with both hands. She was not weeping or asking questions. She was simply recording the entire arrest with the steady, practiced precision of someone who had orchestrated this exact moment. The complete lack of shock on Evelyn's face was a chilling revelation that my military background recognized instantly, confirming she had advanced knowledge of this raid. As they loaded me into the police cruiser, I silently catalogued her cold demeanor and perfect filming angle, locking the details away into a mental file for later. The short drive to the county jail took less than 15 minutes, during which I methodically reviewed the potential angles of attack being leveled against my reputation. Someone had constructed a highly convincing evidence file to secure a pre-dawn raid warrant, and my wife was currently celebrating her apparent victory. The processing room was blindingly bright and smelled of industrial cleaner, filled with the low hum of early morning administrative chatter and typing. A young deputy finally escorted me into a stark interrogation room with a single metal table, placing a small cup of tap water before me. When I questioned him about the specific allegations, he looked at his paperwork and muttered phrases like corporate fraud, asset concealment, and grand larceny. I immediately requested my legal counsel, watching through the glass partition as the investigators outside began whispering frantically while reviewing my official background files. At 4:40 in the morning, a seasoned investigator named Detective Vance Miller entered the room holding a thick folder, his face bearing the exhaustion of a long career. He began scanning the first few pages of the file, but his eyes suddenly froze as he processed my extensive background in federal fraud investigations. Miller looked up with an expression of pure disbelief, immediately ordering the guard to remove my handcuffs before apologizing for the aggressive nature of the raid. He flatly asked if a criminal organization or someone closer to home was attempting to frame a retired federal investigator. I confirmed his suspicion and explained that the anonymous physical documents mailed to his department were a desperate attempt to bypass digital tracking metrics. I requested to see the alleged evidence, pointing out that the forged bank statements utilized a standard text font rather than the proprietary typeface used by my actual financial institution. Furthermore, the fabricated transaction logs showed massive wire transfers clearing on holiday weekends when global banking systems were completely offline. The final error was my corporate tax identification number, which was mistakenly altered by a single digit at the very end of the document. The level of intimate financial access required to build this deceptive file pointed directly to Evelyn, who had been exhibiting unusual behavior over the past 2 months. I advised Detective Miller to subpoena the security footage from local stores to track the purchase of the prepaid phone used for the tip. Additionally, the unique ink signatures and alignment errors on the printed papers would undoubtedly match the commercial machine at her real estate brokerage firm. Miller took rapid notes, realizing the entire case was unraveling because the true perpetrator had underestimated my professional capabilities. The motive behind this elaborate trap became crystal clear, as Evelyn had been embezzling client funds through her real estate transactions and needed to neutralize me. She knew my analytical skills would eventually uncover her legal schemes, so she attempted to destroy my credibility and gain total custody of our daughter. Looking back, I realized the subtle changes in her behavior over the last year were not stress from her promotion, but the slow rot of greed. She had transformed from the loving partner I married into a calculating stranger who viewed her own family as a threat. Within 48 hours, the digital forensic footprint from her office printer and the retail surveillance footage completely crushed Evelyn's fabricated narrative, leading to her swift arrest. The legal battle that followed was grueling, but Vance and Clara remained entirely safe under my care while the truth was fully exposed in court. Standing on our repaired front porch weeks later, I watched the autumn leaves fall and felt a profound sense of gratitude for my survival instincts. This painful betrayal taught me that true strength is not about preventing life from breaking apart, but having the clarity to rebuild it.